So there we go. Let's get the thoughts of political reporter for the Daily Mail US, Victoria Churchill. Victoria, good evening. Welcome.
Hi, Ben.
I'm glad you're safe and well.
Thank you.
We interrupted, well, I didn't interrupt your evening, the lunatic gunman did, but you were there last night in the ballroom, you were having drinks and so on, and you very kindly joined the Late Show Live. How are you feeling today? Are you okay? And just your analysis, please, of the evening.
Yeah, you know, I'm okay. I think last night at some point you had remarked that I seemed oddly calm. I think as I figured out as the night went on, it was probably just adrenaline, because by the time I got home, you know, took my makeup off, did a couple hits with you guys and a couple other stations. Honestly, I was lying in bed. I was quite shaky, and this morning I just felt like physically achy, as if I just like ran a marathon.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of just how I feel. But yeah, you know, other than that, fine. I partake in this show on Sundays because I typically work Sundays, so I, worked pretty much my full regular shift today for the Mail. So, if any of you guys have missed any of those stories, please go check them out. We have kind of a timeline story of what we saw from our perspective in the room. I think is quite great, quite eye-opening. And yeah, I think overall, very happy to be here, to be safe.
Yeah.
And thankfully nothing worse happened.
Sure. What's going on with the security at the Hilton? What was it like? Because I still can't fathom right now how a guy was able to travel all across the country, very long way, across the entire nation, armed to the nines, check into the Hilton Hotel and only have to breach one line of flimsy security.
Yeah, so there was a perimeter that cars couldn't really get past, about a block and a half away from the hotel. But this point of the manifesto I was reading as it came out here, this guy, this crazed madman, said that he was willing to go through most everyone here to get to the targets if it were absolutely necessary, on the basis that most people, quote, chose to attend a speech by a pedophile, rapist, and traitor, and thus are complicit.
Yeah.
And I pull that out because that's actually some rhetoric that we heard from protesters that were lining the streets just outside of the hotel. So basically everybody that was going to this event had to walk through protesters. They were, cordoned off with some bike fencing type cordoning off, but that was kind of the rhetoric, is people were saying, this media that has been very unfavorable to President Trump, right? Let's be quite clear about that. They were saying that just by being in attendance at this dinner that he was at, they were complicit in everything that they are blaming the Trump administration of doing. Yeah,
his so-called manifesto said, I would still go through most of everybody here, including guests at the hotel, the Secret Service, the police and so on, maybe even cleaners and workers. He said, I would still go through most of them in order to get to the targets if it were absolutely necessary, on the basis that most people, says this absolute nut job, that most people chose to attend a speech by a paedophile, rapist, traitor, and thus are complicit. I really hope, he says, it doesn't come to that. I mean, he's just lost his brain. Last question to you. How does this happen? How do you get some kind of assumingly normal guy who's fairly intelligent? He went to Caltech, he studied computer science, he had a good job, he made computer games. He didn't look like your typical nut job. How do you get from that to what we see on screen now? Is it the brainwashing of the media, the language that I just talked about?
Brainwashing, I think, particularly in the last 5-6 years, people have just become very isolated. I think kind of in the post-COVID area, etc. But yeah, right, that's the big question. But also in terms of security, basically there was, as you pointed out, a very thin line of magnetometers right before the ballroom. But people could pretty much traverse freely. You had to show a code that you were attending the event or a pre-party. But, people have been pointing out those could have probably easily been forged. And again, the situation could have been a lot worse, and so we're thankful that what happened carried out the way that it did and was contained to what we have seen.
Okay, Victoria, thank you very much. I'm glad you're safe and well. Sorry the night didn't go as planned, but it could have been a lot worse, I argue. So good to see you here. Thank you, Victoria Churchill. Right, so